We are. There might be losing.
The challenge is that the online people wants to make sure that so he wants to make sure that they can follow. So that's the challenge now. So that they won't just be okay, sorry about that. We were trying to make sure that the online participants followed. I know I have very limited time and I'm very happy about that. So by the end of this discussion, I hope to have agitated our minds sufficiently. It's not a case of a one-way traffic. I just want to raise some issues. Let's rub minds and then we learn from one another. So I said, if you look at my objective there, I said, I hope to agitate our minds, give us new information and possibly to leave us with some questions. Some of us, know that other states had anti-corruption laws. So that's one piece of information that passed across. And in the course of this discussion, we'll find out how many states actually have. Now, another question I want to ask, what is corruption? Before we look at the slide, anybody, what is your own understanding of corruption? Sorry? Fraudulent act, yes. Anybody, it's only the directors that are speaking. What do you understand by corruption? When you say corruption, what do you understand by corruption?
Abuse of office.
Abuse of office, yes.
Use of public resources for personal gain.
Use of public, yes, office for personal gain. So when you use office biro and use it to write something at home, is that corruption? That follows the definition, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, take it home. Yes, ma'am. Undue gratification. You don't need to stand up. It's undue gratification. That's undue gratification. For an official assignment, because we all pay salary, isn't it? So I can't say because I go to court, my witness has to pay my transport fare. Is that corruption? It's not a corruption. If my witness is paid. Okay, do you agree? Sir, see beside Mr. Liba, I want to say something. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes,
yes.
I just want to talk about the fact that I want to look at it from religious points of view.
Yes.
And I'll give that concept.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all,
yes.
Every unrighteousness
is
a sin. That was religious concept.
Yes.
Then from our own little point of view, I want to say anything that's not really provided for that to do is as a corruption.
Okay. Anything that is not provided for statistically and you do is part of corruption. Okay, we'll find out soon enough. So I went online. The Webster's Online Dictionary defines it as a dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people, such as government officials, all of us here, or police officers. It can also be described as depravity or a departure from the original or from what is pure or correct, which you follow what Mr. Ajayi said, something that is pure, and then you change it to an impure use. That is a form of corruption. So you can look at it rightly, as I said, from the religious side and also from the legal side. But of course, in this instance, we are looking at it from the legal side. The next thing I want to ask us is, do we think there's a universally acceptable definition of corruption? No. Just from sampling in this, Mr. Adebayo, here we go. Yes.
I would say no.
No, why?
in some parts of the world,
Yes,
and I just say, let's in US, for instance,
yes,
you enter a church
yes,
and then it is the practice or tradition
yes,
that you must give a tip.
exactly.
So that to them over there will not be corruption.
Okay, it's like you read my paper, Mr. Adibayo, I'm suspecting you. So he's right. What in Nigeria we don't consider corruption in some other parts of the world could be considered corruption. But then we all know that the law must have a minimum kind of moral acceptance for it to be universal and universally accepted. Am I right? Yeah. So we also have, let's take it a bit in the family context. You know that some parts of the world that if somebody goes to visit Dr. Martins, because you respect her, and Dr. Martins likes that gentleman so much, and he says, I want to entertain you. You know he can give him his wife for the night. You know that. In other parts of the world, it's important. So in that part of the world, they may consider it normal. What's the big deal? I like Mr. Idris so much. Mr. Idris, borrow my wife for one night. Don't try it. But in some other institution, they will say, no, how can you do that? It's immoral. That just you understand. And you know why I said that. And I have immunity for today. Thank you. So definitely, I don't think there's a universally acceptable definition of corruption. It depends on where you are. But generally, there must be a minimum standard of morality or law for it to be considered corruption. So I said this training is organized for us as law officers because we have a great responsibility. And what is that responsibility? We are law officers. We are supposed to uphold the law. So we need to have at least a minimal understanding of what corruption is, so that when we identify it, we can actually address it. Okay? Are we still together? Yeah. So really, what is corruption? Like Mr. Adebayo said, is it giving tips at a restaurant? Is it giving tips at the airport? Is it using your discretion to change figures? Let me give an instance. Recently, I had the privilege of going somewhere. And you know all these people that push trolleys at the airport? We have them in Keja, we have them all over. So these ones have a uniform, and that uniform is a t-shirt. At the back of the uniform, they wrote it boldly, no tips. Have you seen that before? I was surprised. I said, how can these people do this hard work? And my friend and I that were moving, we had very heavy bags. And these people are carrying heavy bags. That can I shouldn't tip them. But I know that in that jurisdiction, they have looked at the ills, the things that can emanate from giving tips. And they have decided that to avoid such things, it's better you don't give tips. Unlike what Mr. Adebayo said, when you go to a restaurant in the US or maybe Canada or some other Western countries, you find that you just have to give a tip. In fact, most of these the waiters and waitresses, most of them are students. Some don't get paid. Some of them don't tip. Exactly. So that tip is so important to them. And at the end of the day, they calculate their tip. I won't be surprised if they didn't tax them. I don't know. You know, so those tips form a large part of their income. Okay. So let's go on. Refusing to print letters or documents that deal with people's careers if they don't give you something. Is that corruption? Yes. Delaying passengers during, oh, sorry.
No, continue.
Is it okay the way I move? Okay, I'm so sorry. Delaying passengers during screening till they show. I think the term they use now is show some love. Have you heard that term before? I was coming into Lagos recently, and then the customs lady said, auntie, show your sister some love. Now I'm like, oh wow. So that's the new way they couch it. Not anything for the boys or anything. Now it's show us some love. I said, okay, I'm sorry, I can't show you any love, bro. You know. So is it giving your students or your junior? That's perhaps you're evaluating your junior. For instance, if I'm going to evaluate Mr. Adebayo now, he doesn't need to ask what I'm going to give him. Definitely, I'll give him this. Mr. Adebayo. So is it giving your students or your junior lower grades than he deserves unless he cooperates? We all know the video that went viral about the cold room, they call it now, in University of Lagos and all that. Yes. So there's a rumor that we may discuss that soon enough. So Olamide is the one behind that rumor. So you can see him later. Is there okay, we have already talked about that. Perhaps there is a universal definition, perhaps there isn't. Now, at this point, I must apologize. I had a very short notice. It's not an excuse, it's an apology to prepare this paper, so I may still need to touch it up before we circulate it. So I said the Constitution has provision, section 15 says that the state is enjoined to abolish all corrupt practices and abuse of power. So corruption, abuse of power, you really can't separate the two. But when we talk about power, really, power doesn't lie only in the hands of directors. Do we agree? Because you find that, for instance, in the Ministry of Justice, those of us that just did promotion exams, how important is your upper form? How important is your upper form? If you don't have your complete upper form, what's going to happen? No promotion. So that so-called junior officer that has custody of your upper forms, at that point in time, they're extremely powerful. Yeah. It's even more powerful than your director. Because your director is going to endorse it, but even if she endorses it line by line for each page, and the clerical officer or admin officer who refuses to process those documents, that's the end. So when we talk about abuse of power, let's not have this belief that power only rests in the hands of the CEO or in the top management. I've been a victim of a situation whereby I needed a document, and the particular admin officer, who was quite junior to me, refused to produce the document. There was nothing I could do. So I just had to, try to understand that person and make sure I got my document out. Likewise, when you go to the hospital, how many of us in general hospitals? How many of us in general hospitals? Thank you. And you go to, they have these people that they call them, what's the word now? That you get your card from them. Now, if that person does not bring out your card, what's going to happen? That's the end of the appointment with the doctor. Forget it. Because they will not give you another card. And to process another card is going to take, God forbid that you see emergency. So power is something that is not peculiar to top management or CEOs. So when you abuse your power as an officer and use it either to gratify your own self or to gratify, for instance, Mr. Olamide is my brother, and I use my position as a staff in the Directorate of Commercial Law to assist him to get a contract. It's a form of corruption. We have rules stating clearly that this should not be done. And then also when we are employed, we have this oath that we take, and we are subject to code of conduct. Each one of us, we have our own different codes that guide our party. Isn't that so? As lawyers, we have our code. As law officers, we have our code. So when we deviate from this in a way that is clearly corruption, it can also fall under laws that will make us liable to prosecution, as we discover soon enough. Am I good? So we find that corruption threatens constitutional obligations, including good government, welfare of people, freedom, equality, and justice. We talked about the issue of hospital, for instance. It is so important. Health is so important. So when somebody says that he's not going to bring out your hospital card if you don't give him something, for goodness sake, it could lead to loss of life. It could lead to so many other things. When I have the opportunity, for instance, of developing my local government, and I get some funds, I'm supposed to do some schools, maybe put the roofs over the schools, and I don't do it. I use the money to marry a second or third wife. Now, at the end of the day, when the rain comes, those students are suffering for it. Some of them could get sick, anything could happen. And then when the students end up being, these are our friends up north, that, or we have them maybe in some other kind of militant group. We really can't say that it's somebody's fault. We are all guilty, okay? So it affects the security and welfare of people. Yeah. Does Nigeria in particular have an anti-corruption law? Yes, we have so many laws in Nigeria. So many, like we started like we discussed when we started. We have different states that have their laws. So I mentioned just a few of the laws. We have the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act. Please don't ask me why I put that one first. Yeah. Then no, that's not why, man. Then we have the Advanced Fraud and Other Fraud Related Offences Act. We have the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act, Banking and Other Financial Institutions, cannot say public. So this is where your question is answered. Cannot say Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission Law, 2008. I'm sure many of us didn't know that law was enacted that far back, 2008. Yes, we have the Oyo State Anti-Corruption Agency Law, 2019. We have the Lagos State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission Law, 2021. Then we have the Cross River State Public Complaints Anti-Corruption Commission Law, 2022. If anybody wants these laws, I should be able to fish them out from my system. You can see me later. I think I have PDF of each one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't have sufficient time to go through so much, but let's see how it goes. Then, of course, we have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. These are all laws that guide anything relating to corruption, okay? Please, if I'm going too fast for you, just stop me. Or if you didn't get something, just stop me. So of course, the foundation of everything is the Constitution. The Constitution is supreme. Its provisions have binding force on authorities and persons throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's in sub 1. Then if any law is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution shall prevail. And that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void, which is why we can challenge such things as killing of twins, inheritance laws that are repugnant to natural justice and all that, because we feel that they are not founded in the Constitution. Then we ask ourselves, why do we have so many laws? Is it multiplicity or is it duplicity? What do we think before we go further? Anybody? Sorry?
I was going to ask you.
Mind you, any question I cannot answer, Olamide is going to answer, because it's the one that came to the panel. Any hand up, is it multiplicity or duplicity?
Both. Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's both?
Because when you have multiple laws on the subject matter,
Yes.
there is tendency for
Duplication. Any contrary opinion? Mr. Shoko, you wanted to say something? What's something, Mr. Shoko? No. Yes, ma'am.
From the issue of the concurrent and inclusive use. There are so many things that both the federal government, states, yes, they have the same concept of it. So, and people are not living in Abuja, people are living in the state. So why can't they do those things? People for the state, as the state does, other than the federal.
Other than at the federal.
Yeah, because so many of these cases in the
Okay. Mr. Adebayo, yes, sir.
and I was going to talk about the issue of
Okay.
for instance, if we look at section 251.
Oga, hold on. Hold on. The question is it multiplicity or duplicity?
I'm saying that.
That's something I came and I saw you, I was afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'm trying to answer the question.
Yes.
I would say multiplicity.
Okay.
Not duplicity.
Yes.
Because of the issue of jurisdiction.
Okay.
Because like I said, for instance, the Constitution separates what the federal.
Powers of federal and
Yeah,
state.
that kind of thing. And also, the issue of where was an offense committed.
Yes.
And then there could also be cultural, there could also be cultural issues.
Yes.
Because what the northerners, for instance,
Yes.
would consider based on their culture
Okay.
as may be different from what some other ethnic groups in the south. So I would see that multiplicity and not duplicity.
And not us.
Okay.
So what we northerners consider as corruption is different from what you southerners consider. Because I've become a northerner now by default. I think Mr. Adebayo.
Not a absolute sense like that.
Okay.
But I'm saying there might be instances of
Okay, well, at the end of the day, let's see if we can agree on this. Now, another question is the plethora of cases, sorry, that should be plethora of laws. You can move the laptop. That's the typo. The plethora of laws that we have, has it reduced or deterred, has it reduced offenses or deterred offenders?
no.
Not in any way. So why do we keep making more laws? Conscience.
I think it's by the international organization.
Thank you. That could very well be one of the reasons. Because you find that a lot of laws, for instance, we have the process of crime law and not a lot of the time is an offshoot of discussions we have in international organizations. For us to get certain benefits, we need to enact those laws. But enforcement of the law is now the issue.
Exactly.
Yes.
To be the foundation anyway.
Sorry?
The laws are always the foundation. Like
Yeah.
you guys say, there was.
I agree with you,
laws are
sir.
not there. And we can't, they have not even started.
Okay. Then the next question now is why do we have federal laws? And I think we discussed that, and state laws on the same issue. We talked about the issue of jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, and all that. So what is the position of the law regarding jurisdiction and enactment of these laws? That is the question that Mr. Olamide is trying to tempt me to answer, and I will not fall into that temptation. Okay, there's an error here. I'll rectify it. Let us briefly do an overview of the extant laws. We shall look at Lagos, Oyo, Kano, Cross River, and the ICPC. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, this is the point I think I would have used it. Let me try again, see if it will work. Sorry, what I'll open you. Error. Oh, nice. It's very easy to know which person when you see the person. Okay, let's take it this way, the old school way. We have the ICT. So what I'm going to try to do is I use some tables to illustrate, just to give us an idea of what is in those laws. I think it only works on the projector, yes, on the screen. So the ICPC Act was enacted in the year 2000. We have the mandate education, enlightenment, prevention, and enforcement, corruption and related offenses. So a lot of the time when I come across people, they ask this question: why do you have EFCC and ICPC? What's the difference? Even my late dad, used to ask, what really is the difference? The difference is that, because I know it may agitate our minds too. Unlike the EFCC, the ICPC also has a mandate to educate. Thank you. So a lot of the work, we discover that a lot of the time is more than enforcement. No matter how many armed robbers you catch in Lagos State, we still have a high incidence of armed robbers. PDP, am I right?
Yes.
No matter the number of sexual offenders that we prosecute, we still have so many sexual offenders. Am I right, sir?
Yes.
So we've discovered that you need to go beyond just arresting them and prosecuting them. You need to educate people. For instance, if I know that somebody is grooming my neighbor's child, not my own child, somebody is grooming my neighbor's child, and the person is a predator, because I've been educated, I'll be able to identify the sign, isn't that so? And then I can call the mother aside and say, madam, watch this, I've noticed this and this. So that education is meant to make a whole lot of difference, because it is also cheaper. We want to encourage people to learn. Yes, prevention, of course, is much cheaper than the enforcement. Thank you. Then we have the Kano State law. Their own mandate is to review administrative actions, corrupt practices, education and sensitization. You see, they also have sensitization and education. They have the Oyo State law. They have to review administrative actions, corrupt practices, education and sensitization. Also, Lagos State law, review administrative actions, corrupt practices, and related offenses, taking over investigation of specific cases too. That a lot of the time is a controversy, which I will not go into today for my own security. Then we have education and sensitization. Then we have the Cross River State law, investigation, sensitization, and education of education of people in the state and local governments. That's an year of it. I will still fine-tune the paper so that we can circulate it. So those are the mandates. Now let's look at the composition of their boards. The ICPC, there's a chairman and 12 members. Because it's a federal agency, the 12 members are taken from different geopolitical zones. So the tenure, the chairman has 5 years, the members have 4 years, which can be renewed once. Kano State, we have the chairman and 4 members, 5 years, 4 years. As they are looking through, at the end of the day, you will see that there are so many similarities. When we look through everything, I just picked a few points for us to discuss. And you find that there are so many similarities at the end of the day. So we have the Oyo State, the chairman and 6 members, 5 years, single tenure. We have Lagos State, chairman and 6 members, 5-year tenure is renewable once. Members to be part-time members, chairman full-time. In the case of the ICPC, all the members of the board are full-time. Then the Cross River State, we have chairman, 6 members, 5-year tenure renewable once. 4 of them are full-time. The ex-official, that's the other members, are not full-time. So altogether, we have 4 active members in the Cross River State law. Let's look at a few offenses now. I'm sure we'll find this more interesting. And then I'll ask a few questions at the end. Receiving gratification by official. Under the ICPC Act, we have it under section 8. The punishment is what? The punishment is what? I want to make sure we don't speak. That's why I keep doing that. The Kano State law, we call it obtaining property, section 22. The punishment is what? Lagos State law, gratification by an officer, section 28, punishment. Oyo State law, section 22, obtaining property, punishment. Cross River State, gratification by an officer, section 23, not more than 2 years or 500,000 naira fine. 500,000 naira. Mr. Olamide can vex and pay the fine for someone just from his salary. Abi? Corrupt public officer. So when somebody, you are a public officer now, and somebody makes you a corrupt offer, what's the punishment? Corrupt offer to public officer, section 9, punishment. That's under the ICPC Act. Under Kano State law, corrupt to section 23, the punishment is what? And forfeiture of benefit. Lagos State law, the punishment is under section 29. Punishment is an imprisonment of and forfeiture of the benefits. Oyo State law, section 23, punishment, imprisonment and forfeiture of benefit. There it's called procuring property. Now, Oyo State, they don't prosecute. I don't know if I mentioned that. They refer the cases. They don't prosecute. They work with it. No, with the age. Yes. Which is in Lagos State too. We'll look at that later. Then Cross River State, corrupt offer to public officer, section 24, not more than 2 years or what? Is anybody from Cross River State here? So corrupt demand by a person. Under ICPC Act, section 10, punishment is corrupt officer to public corrupt officer to public officer, section 24 under Kano State law, punishment is under Lagos State law, corrupt demand, section 30, the punishment is no more than 4 years imprisonment. Then corrupt demand by persons. Corrupt demand by persons under Cross River State law, section 25, no more than or 1 million naira fine.
Who are persons?
Corrupt demand by person. That's person. Person. So I mean, any of our directors can just vex and pay a fine on behalf of anybody else from their salary. It's very simple. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It says corrupt offering.
Yes, to public officer.
What if a public officer?
Receiving gratification, and we have corrupt demand. Yes, ma'am. So you find that when you look at all these laws, at the end of the day, it's a kind of a UJ. That if you feel you can escape from one section, there will be a section that is similar that we should be able to cover what you did. So I think that's the idea behind it. Okay. So let's look at some other offenses. I'm still running for time. We have obstruction of investigation. We are having an investigation, and then someone like a case we had some time ago, somebody will crumple up a statement and swallow it. Okay? Or we have some people that shield suspects. So we have all those things coming on. So under the ICPC, deliberate prosecution of investigation, section 15, we have punishment of. Are we still together, please?
proceed to the state law be in abeyance. And I believe the wisdom of the court. Yes, if it does not. So I believe they are deliberate choice of words. They did not call the law null and void.
So now,
in all the cases, they did not call it null and
in
void.
this instance now, we have seen that we have so many states that have these laws. We have looked at a few of the sections of the states, the mandates and all that. So looking at them vis-a-vis the national laws, your argument is still that those parts of the states, I'm trying to understand you now.
Yes.
We find that we have a lot of repetition. So if there's no inconsistency, it's the same thing we are repeating. What's the point of having the state laws? That is my question.
Because their level of coverage is different.
Okay, like I said, I'm going to leave us with many questions. If not, we'll not leave this place. So I'm trying to round up now. Let's look a bit at what we can say about our Lagos State law, because I'm supposed to conclude looking mainly at the Lagos State law. We have fewer offenses than the ICPC Act, because that's the main body talking about corruption. But if we look at that law again, we find that there's reference to particular laws under the criminal law of Lagos State. So that's why I said we have fewer offenses, but we still have direct reference to certain offenses under the criminal law of Lagos State. Then we have, like, I don't need to tell us that we have lighter penalties. The tables that we showed earlier on show that it's not even peculiar to Lagos State. All across all the states, we have lighter penalties, 500,000 naira fine. So now, is it not going to predispose us to a case of foreign shopping? You want to prosecute? They say, no, you can't prosecute me. I'm in cross-river state. You cannot prosecute me under the federal law. You have to prosecute me under cross-river state because I'm an indigene of cross-river. And then at the end of the day, they convict you, not me. And I just approach Mr. Jusa.
So I can feel fine.
Of course, I just approach Mr. Jubilu. I say, Mr. Jubilu, carry for me 500K. And then I walk. That's danger, really. Because at the end of the day, let's be very factual. Everybody's going to want to protect their own. That's the reality. That's the sad reality. But unfortunately, we cannot query the lawmakers for making a particular law. Fortunately, also the law should be dynamic. So there's opportunity for review as things change gradually. Let's hope that
Madam, I'm
gradually. Yes, sir.
sorry to interrupt. I
Yes,
think there's also an international law element.
Yes.
States being subnational don't have that power to make law upon which obligation emanates from international obligation.
Okay.
So that's why the federal government needs to do that. Insofar as the international obligations are also in consonant with the provision of the Constitution.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why there's need for the federal government to legislate on all those states.
Yes.
And for states, in an attempt to supplement that or domesticate. Yes,
exactly. That should be supplementing or domesticating.
I think it can be either way. They can be domesticated, and if the state also see their own peculiar circumstances,
yes,
then to make additional law establish what the federal one has not provided for.
I agree with you, sir.
Yes.
What is the lacuna? I agree with you, sir. But if we have a law that there is on all fours with another law,
yes,
what's the need for that? That's why I asked that question. Is it multiplicity or duplicity? I want us to just agitate our minds.
I think the other issue will also be the courts where that matter will be prosecuted. If it's a federal law, the
yes,
issue of the can't do that state law will emanate.
Okay.
You have to get a free act from the Attorney General. So that's the only justification of states having duplicated law so that we will make access to justice much easier in the states.
Okay.
Yes.
So we find that we've seen that we have lighter penalties. Then the Lagos State law also gives that very controversial provision about taking over previous cases. If you look at, like I said, for those of us that don't have a copy, I can give you the soft copy after this. Lagos State law also provides for a lifestyle audit of public servants. So when you see that a public officer is living beyond means, for instance, we're talking about my G-Wagon that Mr. Olamide is planning to buy for me very soon. And thank you, God bless you. And I discovered that my salary is just 250,000 per month. And you're like, even if she saves her salary for the next 10 years, no fit. So we have that provision, which is also good, because we talked about education, sensitization, prevention. So when you know that definitely the unfortunate truth is that really, as public servants, our salary is peanuts. That's the truth. So, and people expect us to live in that state of peanuts. So when they see a public servant that is looking fine, they don't know that it's the glory of God. So they just assume that this person must be corrupt. That is not to say that we don't have corrupt officers. It's everywhere. We do have corrupt officers. But at the same time, when a state finds that it has some officers that are living beyond the expected needs, that is why we also have declaration of assets. Yes. For instance, when I bought a vehicle, I made sure I spread it around my office that time. I said, oh, my parents left me inheritance. Yeah. I made sure I told everybody around me that was involved, the head of investigation, I made sure I told you. For the simple reason that I know we do a kind of lifestyle audit in the office I'm coming from. So they won't tell you, but there's a way they vet you. Yeah. So I wanted to put it on record that, oh, my mom actually left me an inheritance. When they say, when did you buy this car? And I'm like, it's a Tokumbo car, but my mom's inheritance is there. So by virtue of the inheritance I have from my parents, I can actually add my salary, some savings, and buy a vehicle to avoid stories that touch. Okay. Then we have direct reference. I mentioned that our Lagos State law also makes direct reference to the criminal. Sorry, that should be criminal law. I'll change it. Then we have what this power to compound offenses. Let's look at the section 14 in our free time, please. When you say that the commission can compound offenses, I'm not so comfortable with that. Then the investigate subject to the Constitution and any other law. So again, we are coming back to this discussion on any other law. So when you say that the investigate subject to any other law, it could be interpreted widely or narrowly. Then there's provision for seizure. The for official provisions, I think they should be more specific. I'll tell you the reason for that. For instance, there's somebody we're prosecuting now in the office I just left. And we find that this person has assets abroad, he has assets all over the country. So if, for instance, we prosecute him in Cross River State and he ends up having a fine of 500,000, right? Or 1 million, it's a slap on the wrist. But if you're able to get assets, that is like crippling the individual. So far as you can establish that those assets are related to the process of crime. So at the end of the day, find that it is more efficient to take the proceeds from the offender than to just say, go to jail for a month or 2 months or pay a fine, because they will come out of it and they are still going back to enjoy those assets. So I think if we place more emphasis, if there's opportunity for review, if we tighten our provisions on forfeiture, interim and final forfeiture, I think it will help us a lot as a state. My humble view, please. Then they refer their prosecution to the HAG. We have that in section 27. But sub 1 also provides that they can initiate prosecution. One thing I noticed also is that it says that the HAG shall make rules governing the activities of the commission. I'm not sure that is going to be helpful when you talk about independence. I'm not doubting the powers of the HAG, but at the same time, if you want somebody to be the watchdog of the public service, it will be very difficult for you to say that the HAG is going to be the one to make the rules governing the activities. It could be difficult. We've been fortunate to have good HAGs, but nobody knows the future. So I think if you have the opportunity, you may consider looking into that. What's the conclusion? There's no perfect law. Ma? As in the powers of the HAG to prosecute and all that. I'm not talking about the powers to prosecute, but we are talking about the workings of the commission. The workings of the commission. I think the head, the CEO. Oh yes, I think the head, the CEO should be in charge of that. Yeah. Exactly, because of independence. That's what I mean. Talking about prosecutorial power, there's no doubt about it. The Constitution has guaranteed that. No doubt about that. But when we're talking about the workings of the commission, it would be very good if it's the CEO of the board that will have that power to make the rules. Not that they will jettison the powers of the HAG, no. Respect to
state offenses that will prosecute.
I don't understand. Yes, the law also says that that the commission can refer cases to the HAG. It's in the law, the Lagos State law. So when they have cases reported to them, or they themselves initiate those investigations, the law gives them that mandate that they can refer to the HAG. So that one is not tampered with, it's still intact. So what's the conclusion? I think there's no perfect law. That's why we have the Directorate of Legal Drafting. We review the laws over time. as society develops, things also develop, including the law. There's no perfect implementation. I think the problem we have in Nigeria a lot of the time is very poor implementation. For instance, if you have an officer, I don't want to use a particular department, which is my department, so not to indict any department. If you have an officer who doctors files to favor somebody for gratification, a lot of the time we find that we don't follow through. We don't. We just, the next thing that you find that you deploy the person to another department, which is not helping the system. It may seem harsh, but there are some times that we need to follow through some of these things. One of the cases that I was privileged to be assigned to was an officer of that particular agency that took bribe, a very small amount, just maybe like 20 million naira, right? And very small amount. If you see the money that people see, you know that it's a small amount. So, and we already drafted the charges. We had filed the case to court. So I'm not saying that we should go about prosecuting everybody, but from time to time we need to follow through some of these things. Otherwise, the system is going to keep rotting from inside out, and we're not going to, we won't be here forever. So we are going to leave a system that's gradually decaying. So we need to, think about that. So they are always there. Exactly. Thank you, sir. It's deterrent. The public service rules are very good, but how many of us, even as bosses, want to give queries? That's the truth. We hardly want to. They will say you're a wicked boss, But some of these things at times we need to, at least we can do mentorship, but once in a while, those things may help us, because our children, we don't know, maybe our children will still come and do this work. I'm not praying for my children to come and work here.
We are going to.
So, okay, I have to wrap up. There are always loopholes. We've seen some of the loopholes from the tables I presented. If you look at enough, you find loopholes in there's no perfect law. It's not possible. There's no perfect law. No matter how hard you try, there is no law that is perfect. Of course, the law was made by people, and nobody is perfect. Yeah. Now, another thing that we need to avoid too much on our plate, there's no agency or government that can do it all. Again, that's not possible. So partnership is very important. One thing I noticed because I interacted a bit with the Oyo State Commission, they have provision to partner with agencies. But the office I just left to partner with agencies, because there are some things that you just find that you don't have, even if you have the statutory power to do so, you may not have the financial power to do so. So you have to maybe partner with some international agencies. For instance, when we're talking about forfeiture, there's no way you can have a very good forfeiture mandate, execute it very well without liaising with what is this? Interpol. Thank you very much. It's Interpol. It's not possible. So you have to partner, have good relationship so that the work will flow very well. You work with credible partners. There's need for collective responsibility and political will. I mentioned this now. We shouldn't always feel that the solution to solving a problem is just parting the person and say, okay, let's see department in me. It doesn't always work that way. There are some times that you just have to take your stand. Otherwise, the system is going to keep rotting. So do our laws and our mode of implementation reflect collective responsibility and political will? That's there for us to discuss. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm sorry, Professor Mrs. Olubiasa. Thank you so much. I mean, a lot of issues here for us to deliberate upon this afternoon. I don't know if the learned Solicitor General has, okay. So let's take questions. And we're not excluding our virtual audience as well. We are indeed very sorry for the issues that we've had today. There's been a lot of issues since we started. So you can drop your questions on the chat box or indicate by raise of hands and they will call you. So, but let's turn here. Questions for Mrs. Olubiasa. I expect this place will be bursting with questions. But even while the presentation was on, we were, okay, Mr. Ladison, please.
I'm very, very impressed. Now, what is your professional view? I think you're considering in front of the eyes. The question I was asking, we argue how this case, the federal high court. It was very obvious, and it was new that evidence limit against the court of appeal. The conduct of the question, and then allow him to come back to federal high court to read that judgment. So what is your view on that? The Nigerian public saw that And that was a total, what it is, difference. It was a total loophole. You know, how did that come? So like the story with the case, all of a sudden, based on that issue alone, the entire judgment was set aside by the appellate court. The distinguished senator, having a field day now. Because was lucky enough to have been people have been the Senate president. So what's your view on that? Very, very good.
Yes, Mr. Adebayo.
Yes, I want to add to that question. In fact, my question, you have covered the thing. My dear sister did not talk about the evidential challenges. Because if we all understand, I mean, by virtue of the understanding that the objective thank you. The objective of the anti-corruption laws is to, prevent and deal with corruption cases. But it seems one challenge the states particularly cannot take care of are the evidential challenges. For instance, somebody says something and then deliberately, maybe after some reason of funds, deliberately comes forth and changes what he has said. And both he, the falsifier of the evidence, and the person being prosecuted, they go scot free. So how do you address the issue of evidential challenges, just like what pointed out?
Any other question for now?
I just wonder what it is in relation to preliminary objection in this type of offenses. What sort of preliminary objection the defense can bring? If they are doing a PO, are they just challenging the jurisdiction of the court of the day? What sort of issues do they raise when they do preliminary objection in relation to these cases? I know that henceforth they cannot do Mulisametu again because the law is changed. So this, how do they try and bring sort of Mulisametu the situation of trying to challenge the decision of the court? You understand? If not, we can always look into it later. Yes.
Okay, you can address it. You have one. Okay, after this.
Okay, thank you. Thankfully, there are just 3 questions. Okay, talking about Mr. Ladison, you talked about the issue of Ojikalu's case.
Yes,
One of the last things I said is that there's no perfect law. When the ACJA was enacted, I know it was enacted to try and address some issues that we felt were pressing issues, and that the only way we could address those issues was by putting certain clauses. Let me give another example. When you're talking about trial in absentia, how constitutional is that provision? Trial in absentia. I've looked at it, I've thought about it, I'm like, we make these laws with good intent. But at the end of the day, even I, my humble self, I agree that it is. I've been elevated to the Court of Appeal. Now you tell me that I can sit as a federal high court judge. Even I found it strange when I read, to be sincere.
Try in absentia.
Yes, under ACJA.
Okay, yeah, it's a new provision that
Is it constitutional, sir?
I think it's constitutional.
No, sir, it's not constitutional.
Yeah. Why I'm saying this is that I know you want to invoke right to fair hearing and all.
Yes.
Yes. What happened is that if you are trying absentia,
Yes.
when you are aware of the sentence, you
Mhm.
cannot be sentenced unless you are there. So when you now come back, even in England, America, they do, so I say, oh, I can't be sentenced.
Yes.
I did not participate. Can you order a retrial? And you order a retrial.
Okay, so what is the point going through that trial?
Yes.
They will send, yes, but it will be when they find the.
Yeah, yeah.
When they find the.
So it's also.
So, but the constitution provides that as a defendant, I have present and for the present, then the law of evidence says that I have the right to examine evidence like this. So my understanding, I'm sorry, I know we can still discuss it. So I know that some of these laws are made with good intent,
Yes.
but when we talk about the practicability now,
It's a different.
the different thing, especially when you suppose them with the constitution.
Yes.
That is my humble opinion. You ask for my opinion. That is my humble opinion, Mr. Ladi. You don't have to agree with it.
What if we
Then
consider the fact that, what if we consider the fact that the defendant knew that there was a charge on the case and I come here.
Yeah.
Mr. Adebayo, there's a case that was prosecuting, right? Now, the person, you know, the law is that you have to serve me the charge that you filed against me.
Yeah.
So while we were investigating, this person absconded before we could file the charge. Do you understand? So we could not even serve.
They
are aware now.
Now, this person has been declared wanted. So I know now, as a defendant, I've been declared wanted. I know there's a charge against me. So you're not telling me that because I've been declared wanted, I know there's a charge against me, you can prosecute me in my absence.
Like an advertising charge.
Yeah. And one of the other reasons is the rationale behind it.
Yes.
So that the witness give a very recent memory of their testimony.
With you, sir.
And finding you 10 years, 15 years ago.
I agree with you, sir. The evidence when giving fresh is usually more compelling and cogent.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yes.
But the fact still remains that the extant law gives me the right to cross-examine witnesses that you bring against
Yes.
me. It gives me the right to be there during my trial.
Yes, yes.
So that is
But
where
I think most of the cases that been tried in absentia are people who are aware and absconded.
Of
and
course.
evaded jurisdiction.
But we all know
So
that
they should not benefit from their own.
no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that is the law that we are.
I
we are
understand. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So let me take the second question.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am. Many of these offenders we are talking about are within jurisdiction. Within jurisdiction. Like my own defendant I was talking about now, we got information that she was somewhere in the east. You understand? So many of them are within jurisdiction. So if it's extradition, you know it's easier. Once you have, you know, you just have to have the necessary infrastructure in place. So let's look at the second question. When we are talking about evidential challenges, Mr. Adebayo, I think evidential challenges are peculiar to every kind of case. Every kind of case. Once a witness has been tampered with, the witness can retract. Once a witness has been tampered with, the witness can turn hostile. So all those things is not peculiar to corruption cases that will be prosecuted by the state. So I wouldn't say to some extent that maybe the federal agencies have a privilege in that area. Maybe to some extent, you say in terms of infrastructure that some of them may have.
No,
Maybe I'm talking of. Yes, sir. Maybe I didn't get you.
Was because you know the state cannot enact just like what happened in terms of Section 9B.
Yes, of course.
ACJL,
Exactly.
and the good intention of the state.
Exactly.
Ensure,
Yes.
yes, to ensure that you know the defendant, this so-called voluntary
Professional. Yes.
over there that is not real.
Yes.
Actually become real. But look at how it went, and look at how it was almost completely killed.
Interestingly, sir, if you look at the
Yes, state and all this.
interestingly, sir, if you look at the Lagos State law, for instance, there's provision saying that there's provision referring to external laws of evidence. It says the laws of evidence that the state will abide. So I'm looking for the right term to use, unless I bring out that section verbatim, right? So the state also refers to the evidence as making it clear that whatever proceedings will be followed should be in line with that law. Have I answered your question now, sir? Okay. Then, the DPP's question, we are talking about preliminary objection. We're talking about the type of, off the top of my head, sir, I really can't say, but the experience.
So that when we start prosecuting, we prepare for that kind of preliminary objection. We will be taking about
what are the
possible grounds. Yeah, possible grounds, yeah.
Yes, the closest I've had is like one case that I did, because it emanated from a a lecturer
Yes.
in a federal institution. So he said they hadn't followed, we're talking about public servants, queries and all that.
Yes.
They hadn't followed the due process in his own school
Yes.
before we filed charge.
Yes, yes.
But the truth is that,
Yes.
Minister, the truth is that any PNB that you want to set up in public service does not have jurisdiction over criminal
Yes.
matters.
Yeah.
So you were able to respond in
Yes.
that wise.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the court gave ruling in our favor. So we've arranged it.
Why
But it didn't stop the trial.
I've seen the situation where somebody will say, I'm from Lagos State. You are charging under Lagos State. When are you charging me on that very much? Yeah.
From shopping that
Yeah.
from Prosecute,
Yeah.
and you feel is my good friend.
Yeah.
I want to prosecute him. I
And
don't
we did-
prosecution. 100,000 naira there. And he just paid my fine. And I walk out and we go party in a nightclub.
Yes.
And that's the end of it. And then sometime later, there's a government that comes and they just give me pardon and wipe away everything. And then I go to the National Assembly and, you know.
I think what we did was saying.
So I think I've answered all the questions.
Yes,
Like I
yes,
said,
thank
please
you.
pardon me, I'll try and clean up the presentation. Thank you very much.
I think, okay, any other question? I mean, we usually have till 4 p.m. So
Okay.
we have about 17 more minutes. Any other question? No other. Okay. All right. So I think it's in the absence of no other question. I think it's appropriate for us to once again congratulate Professor for doing justice for the topic. And I just want to say that for those of us who joined virtually, we use the same link every time we're having Learn series. So I hear people come forward to ask for link. It's the same link anytime. You can use the same link to join. And that ends the Learn series for today. Thanks for coming. Enjoy.